What's up guys, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I bring you news for Romancing SaGa Universe, and we just got the announcement of two new banners. That is Romancing Festival Arthur, that brings Arthur together with Talon and Matcha. This banner is different from JP, but they are back in releasing 3 units per banner, sadly. And the other banner brings Noel and Black and Goddess. Well, we already have information about both banners. This time they released the videos close to each other, so we will be moving to Reddit here on a post by Hands43. Like always, thank you so much for doing this amazing job. All 2 videos are here, and we have the information on Matcha first. She got buffed to will only. Her endurance should be okay. Her intelligence and agility are also okay. This character does try to bring some type of new utility for boss fights. She got also an increase to 20% to her damage, and when she gets attacked, damage is reduced by 30% instead of 25%. When she uses S2 or S3, she has a 50% chance to enter a charge stance that will allow her to attack in the next turn via a 4S power attack that has heat and blunt. Before she attacks, she uses morale up extreme. That's the same thing that, well, Hardy does. So this attack's gonna feel very strong, and after attacking, she will cleanse the enemy agility and intelligence buff, and will also just decrease their agility and intelligence by, well, since this will be used on passive, it's a 15% debuff for those 2 status. Then we have a passive that reduces damage taken again, this time by 25%, and she also gets 2 BP by the end of a turn. That's better than her last style that has 4 BP on average. Then, when she uses blunt attacks, damage increases 30%, and when she uses heat attacks, it increases by another 30%. Good thing is that, well, this attack here has both heat and blunt, so it will benefit both, but when she is attacking with other skills, she has to choose one. Skill number 1 is free and recovers 1 BP with heat and blunt, so this one also benefits. It's nice because it's global only, that extra BP. So, in this turn where she uses this, she recovers 6. Skill number 2 is an 8 BP Earth blunt attack that has double S power that will clear all agility buffs an enemy has applied, and then it will debuff agility by up to 20% on max level. If you remember, there is the latest version of Rock Bouquet that has something similar. With Gobby's Spark, she will remove all buffs applied by a boss and then debuff the intelligence right after. This is made so that when a boss can buff via attacks, it usually buffs too much, so you prefer to remove that buff and then debuff later, so that you actually need to use this constantly, but the values are much higher than just debuffing. And then she has the same skill, but this time it's heat, and this time instead of debuffing agility, it debuffs intelligence. And, well, in this case, you are only getting the 30% damage increase for passive number 3. So, she is very resistant, she won't die easily. You can still inherit that SaGa Magical Train to apply Sunder if you want. She even has better BP generation and guarantees extra BP when you don't have enough. And you can use her for when bosses self-buff intelligence or agility. I believe the intelligence buff is much more important because, well, this is what kills you. Agility can also kill you if the enemy is using martial arts attacks, but that's not as important. Well, she is a very interesting character that will probably receive at least an SS Plus grade, but I'll think more about that later. Then we have Arthur, and he was buffed to receive higher damage potential with 119 STR, 90% endurance and will. They are okay for battles, and his agility is actually pretty high because he is a party support now. He starts the fight with 13 BP and buffs all of his status by 20%, no, 25%. And then when he attacks with either skills or spells, he will activate Turbulence. That's the same skill that he chases as well with his past style. It's an 8 power single target slash indirect attack. And then when he gets killed, he will revive once and will stay on 1 HP 1 time per battle. Well, if the enemy attacks multiple times, you can still die, but he can trigger something else via passive 2. Now, passive number 2 is kinda crazy because first of all, we need to understand that your Arthur will always attack twice when attacking. His main skill and the chase attack called Turbulence. So passive number 2 triggers effects when he attacks, and it will trigger 2 times. when his HP is full, he buffs all of his status by 15% and then recovers his BP by 2. That means that if you don't kill a target in that wave, he will actually recover 4 if he chases and buff his status by 30. Well, the first hit will have 15% and the second one will have 30% buff by the end of the turn. So, well, it's okay to use it when farming because you have actually lots of different options for inheritance. Then, if his HP is not full, this is more often when you are on a boss fight. He will grant himself an attack boost that increases damage potential by 15%, lasts for 3 turns. You actually cast this twice, and a defense boost that decreases damage taken by 15% as well, and he will cast this twice, also stacks. He will also recover BP, actually 2 times. So if he is not on full HP, he will actually recover at least 5 BP, and if his HP is full, he recovers at least 7. Now, if he is on critical, he will trigger additional effects besides those that are on the when not on full HP. You get yourself a damage block. That will be 2 damage blocks that lasts for 2 times in that turn. You will also recover 4 BP, but he will actually recover 2 times, 8 BP on total. And then he will recharge his S3 for 1 time, but this will trigger 2 times, I guess, probably. And his skill number 3, we were discussing later, it's a busted skill that offers lots of different supports but has a very high cost. So, in the end, you have lots of different effects, and when you trigger both critical and not on full HP, you can get as much as 13 BP in that turn. That's right, 8 plus 2 plus trend by the end. So that will lead him to use his skill number 3 much more often, and well, the only problem is that he needs to get into critical HP to recharge that skill usage, but way too many effects to use with this character, right? Then he has 30% damage increase when using swords, and reduces damage taken by 30% as well. So only 1 damage increase, 1 damage reduction, but stacks many defense boosts, but also stacks many attack boosts as well, has good BP generation, always chases, and starts the fight with 13 BP as well. Then, for skill number 1, we have a single target double S power sword attack that before he attacks, he buffs SDR off everyone in the party by up to 30%, and then will also recover his own HP. It says there, but I guess this is a typo, by probably 1.2 thousand. Then he attacks, and then after he attacks, he will chase as well, so this will actually feel more in line to high-end 4S power attacks. That's right, with 9 BP. And he can actually use this 2 times in a row if you are on full HP. Now, one interesting thing about skill number 1 is that, well, before he attacks, he will buff STR, and then he will recover HP, and then he attacks. If he recovers his HP to max, he will then actually trigger the first part of the passive where he gets 4 BP back, and buffs his off status by a total of 30, 15 plus 15. So you get a total of 7 BP in that turn, where you had spent 9. If you have Valdor in your party, you can actually use this as much as you want, but it can lead into some problems later because it will also just use too much BP to try to use his skill number 3. Or even 3 times in a row in Dragon's Dance EX formation if you are always chasing. Then the second skill is a 13 BP 4S power attack, that is a slash, and it's fast as well. Before he attacks, he grants himself morale up very large, that increases his damage by 40%, then he will attack, much like Hardy does. But remember that beyond increasing the damage of his 4S attack, he will also chase, and the chase will also benefit from this morale up. It's only on global, because in JP he only triggers that chase on normal attacks. So a very big power in turn 1 that you can actually use for farming, or you can just wait to use for boss fights as well. Still will not beat Sumir on slash potential though. Then skill number 3 is that very cost support with 17 DP cost that will first buff all status for all surviving allies by 40% on rank 1 and 50% on rank 99, but you need to manually level this up. And it will also recover all allies HP by, I don't know, more than you need. it will be around 4000, I guess. It's the highest type of heal that we have. And it revives as well because it's a recovery spell. It also gives 5 EP to everyone, including himself. So in the turn where he uses 17 BP, he recovers at least 8. That's right. This can only be used 2 times per battle, but we already discussed that he can recharge once he gets back into critical. So if you can use him on full potential, he can replace your main healer and he can be a very strong buffer. I don't think you can use him as a main, of course, but he can actually be a secondary one in a right squad. And you can use this skill always on turn 2. So use it as soon as available so that you can actually use very high cost skills of your other party members right on the start of the fight and keep your status buffed most of the time as well. So I don't know, man, this Arthur looks like way too much stuff, but I think that he will not replace Mirza as your healer, but he does not replace Mirza as the main healer, forget about that. He does not replace your main buffers, forget about that as well. But knowing how to use this guy can actually bring lots of utility to a party, where he can also just do good enough damage. So, for now, I'm thinking about giving him a triple S crate, but I will have to check his performance to be sure about that. But it's a very interesting character nonetheless. Moving on, we have Talon, and he is a strange character. He just tries to be a healer with high dexterity, but very bad endurance and will. I suppose he could have much more than this. He clears all status ailments to himself on the end of a turn, and when attacking he recovers 1 BP to himself and a random ally alongside around 250 HP to himself and a 1 random ally. Then he gets a 30% damage increase to slash damage to everyone in the party. Well, he's a gunner and increases slash damage. That is for Leon. Leon can benefit if you are using Wind Bullet, for example. There are other attacks, but this is more likely to help Leon and Chooser that also do slash damage. By the end of a turn, recovers 1 BP, so usually you get 5. Then we have Intrinsic Gun 4, increasing damage by 20%, reducing damage taken when resisting by 40, and 37% chance to evade when resisting. At least 1 damage reduction to help. First skill is 1 BP, full AoE attack with slash and heat, so there's slash for damage, but this is not useful for remembrance anyway. The second skill is a 6 BP A power single target attack that applies defense down, decreasing defense by 15%, and then he attacks. Well, it still feels a little weak. He's not really a very strong damage dealer, so I guess just to apply defense down so that some other characters can do more. Since this applies for 3 turns, you can stack 3 times if you can use it. So you just increase damage a little further and further and further. The third skill is a 9 BP C power recovery skill that can revive. That's right, you can only use it 2 times per battle. And it also heal for quite a lot of volley, also cleansing all debuffs and status ailments. This is made for Remembrance. I don't think anyone is gonna use him for real hard challenges, but on Remembrance we don't have many healers. We have PGQ. A robot got released alongside a 10 robots banner. Some people have it, I don't. But, well, if you have your Cindy can still help a lot by healing passively, but she is not very sustainable. I guess this is kind of the evolution of the strategy of healing with guns. Not really mandatory as well, can still probably survive, especially now that Leon has damage block, but very nice to have. This will receive an SS grade in the tier list. And well, with this we have the end of a banner. I don't think this banner should be recommended to everyone. Arthur is kind of good if you think about it, but it's not like he is replacing Valdor, for example, that also grants defense boost to the party via 2 different passives and also reduce BP cost, kind of like a reverse BP battery. So if you have Valdor, you can actually kind of use him well with some other character that can also heal. By increasing their BP, they can actually heal more often, so you get good stuff with this Arthur, but he's also not so easy to use. A little more gimmick. But if you don't have Valdor or even Socho, I guess he's a good pick. Then Talon is just a useful character for Remembrance, but not something that you should be aiming for. This banner will receive a silver award, but it's okay if you like the characters. Moving on, we have Goddess banner, where she got Endurance and Will buff. Those valors are good. She has 120% intelligence. Well, she grants herself morale up and guard up medium, on the turn begins. That is 25% damage increase and damage reduction. She also recovers BP by 2 now, so at least 5 BP. Then via passive number 2, she starts the fight with 12 BP, and when she attacks weak targets, she recovers another BP and recovers HP. So up to 6 BP if she is landing weak attacks. Then the third one, when equipping M-Arts, she gets a 30% damage increase and reduced damage taken by 30. That's important because she's a counter unit. Skill number 1 is E-Power, kinda like a normal attack, but it buffs her own intelligence for free, 25%. And it has double elements. That's actually very useful because she can actually land more weak attacks to recover 6 BP per turn. Skill number 2 is a B-Power 8 BP skill with slash and hit. Made for farming, but she's not really a damage dealer for that, so it's just there. The third one is a 10 BP double S power attack with slash and hit, that after attacking she enters a defensive counter stance, so she takes damage and she counters with Midair Masamune. That is a double S power attack with slash and hit. Well, we have lots of slash counter attackers, and we also have another counter attacker with hit damage, that is Bertrand with both of his styles. So if you already have Bertrand, I don't see any reason to pull for this goddess, only if you are a fan. Moving on, we have Noel, that got a little buff to his STR, 111. He has very good endurance and will to survive on very long fights, low agility, and okay love and charisma because he is a healer. Moving on, turn begins if all allies are alive. He grants himself a guard up that decreases damage taken by 35% for that turn. And then if someone is dead, then he grants himself a better guard up that should actually be either 40% or 50%. I'll check this out in my full review. And then he starts taunting. Yes, that is a very large effect and lasts for 1 turn. So if someone dies, he tries to get even more chance of being attacked instead of the other ones that remained. When being attacked, he recovers 1 BP, much like Socho, and grants himself this Absorb Life mark that we don't know what it is. The game does not explain on the trailers, so we'll have to wait for the data download to understand. Maybe this will be something like when he gets hit, he self-heals. I don't know. We'll have to check. Then by the end of a turn, he recovers HP by around 220. On odd turns, he recovers 2 BP. On uneven turns, he buffs STR and will by 15%. So as you can see, he actually wants to buff sustain alongside damage and BP generation. He already gets by getting hit, and that's how he actually performs his hold better. He still has Iron Wall Defense 7 that decreases damage taken by 50%. Besides guard up, that means that he is a very good tank, but he only taunts when someone dies, so strange. Skill number 1 is a 2 BP slash and shadow attack that recovers on HP by around 220 and buffs his own endurance and will by 25% after the attack lands. So, because he has shadow attacks, he's actually the best thing to be used together on a Saruin squad, and he actually works super well there. Then the second skill is a C power attack with 6 BP that is fast and then grants himself cover, so that he will cover 50% of the time. That is, if someone in your party gets attacked, 50% chance of Noel getting in the front of that character to protect, and he is a tank, so that decreases the damage. It's interesting, but in global it does not work as well, since we have bosses that hit for very high damage, and we already have better sustain with reliable healers. Then the third one is a 14 BP skill with 4 S attack that has slash and shadow. That's nice. Like I said, it still works well on Saruin squads, and he recovers HP of all surviving allies by a small effect. That's right, it's exactly like Steelblade Light, but Steelblade Dark, I guess. Then he grants himself this 2 times Absorb Life mark that I still don't know what it is, like I said, but it's strange that this time he's applying it actively. The other one was applying when being hit. So, it's a character that works much similar to Mirza in a way, but this time he actually needs to be hit to recover more BP to do good damage. Well, I don't think that he's better than Mirza, that is now the best healer in the game, because he can even heal twice, but he's pretty useful. If you wanna use shadow damage together with Saruin, he's gonna get stronger, and this cover can be used in some very niche situations, although that 14 BP can be a little too much. If your boss does not attack him too much, you can actually just wait too much time in order to use it. So he gets 4 BP per turn on average if he does not get hit, so it can be hard to rely on him for your main heals. but still a very useful style. I will probably give him an SS Plus or triple S grade in the tier list. But still, I don't think people with UniverSe will need to summon for him. It's more about having different options with different elemental damage. Let's move on to Metal Black. He got a buff to STR, reaching now 117%, Endurance is 100, Will is 94. Well, those status are good enough, the other ones are kinda bad. Moving to passives, he self-cleanses all ailments by the end of a turn, and when he attacks, he recovers his own and one random ally BP and HP. HP will be around 220, and 1 BP will be nice, so that some people can actually benefit. And the second passive is kinda crazy. In the start of battle, he gets this W chase, then after the second turn, he grants himself X chase, then after the third turn, he grants himself Y chase, and then after the fourth turn, he grants himself Z chase. That's right, he can get 4 different attacks that use letters as their name, and they are not guarantees, they are actually based on RNG. We can check now over my SaGa. The first is an AoE attack with just C power, 50% chance to trigger. The second one is AoE attack as well, but A power this time, that also applies defense down. Then we have another AoE attack, this time has D power, but buffs his own STR by 20%. And the last one, again, an AoE attack, this time has B power, that buffs his STR in Endurance by 30% for one and 20% for the other. It can seem interesting, but all attacks are AoE and they don't have very high power. That means that it will work when there are minions in a boss fight. If there are no minions, the damage is not really that great, because it's everything based on RNG. I can say that he will be very similar to Medea in a boss fight, but just slash and sometimes slash and shadow damage. Medea has much better utility, she can apply Moralidade Medium and can debuff STR and intelligence, so people with Medea will never use this guy, even though he looks cool and all. I don't think he offers too much. Then there is also 30% damage increase at all times and reduces damage taken by 30%. Still, if you get super good RNG, he can self-buff with some of his attacks, he can actually do very good damage. But he is also not better than Sumir, that just got released recently. Now, skill number 1 is a full AoE attack with the power only, slash, and buffs his STR by up to 30%. The second one is now Column with A power. He can use this 3 times in a row for farming, but he's inconsistent. Just A power is not enough to farm, not even story mode sometimes. Then we have 10 VP AoE attack that has A power as well, that buffs his STR in Endurance. And here it says large effect, that should be 40% on max level. So, he can be used for farming, but he's not that great. He can be used for boss fights, but he still has some gimmick behind his chases, and they don't start with him, he needs to wait. So I will have to wait if there's something different with his chase attacks in the download. But based on what we have here, I'll give him an SS Plus grade, much like what you have with Tatiana. That's not as important as Medea. Works, but it's not something that you really need. Well, I don't know what you're going to get with Noel, but so far I'm thinking about giving this a silver award as well. Nothing here seems to be extremely must-have. If you are still pulling for Creator and Razan banner, you are probably safe doing that. But if you want to wait, I'll be doing full reviews for these banners as soon as possible. But well, that's my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. We need your help, please. If you can use the links on the description to help us via Patreon or PayPal. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you soon in the next video or live stream. Bye.